What's up, party people?
Hello, hello, hello.
Hey,
Hello.
Oh, did you guys happen to
See
hear
how party
those two
like we are?
other voices today?
It's a party.
Um, I have to just puff my chest out like a proud, auntie sister. I have Lavender, my, infamous supervillain host, as always. But today with us, we have Traci and Samantha from the Suspended Sentence podcast. Um, before I even
Yay!
let them say anything, I cannot begin to tell you guys what an honor it is to have you guys, not only as friends, but as family, which I do consider that. You guys are our first collaboration, which is another big kind of milestone for Lavender and I.
No, thank you guys for having us very much.
Yes.
Stacy, we absolutely love you. We've loved you for, oh my gosh, since the moment we met you, which has been months and months and months, right?
Almost a year.
Months and
Yeah.
months, yeah.
Yeah. So, no, we feel the same way. We're so grateful that you guys asked us to be.
And then now this is Lavender and Traci and Samantha's first time meeting.
Yes.
So, so guys, tell us a little bit. Well, not us. I mean, I'm an avid fan. But can you tell our listeners what you guys do and where you can be found?
I always make mom Tracy do that.
Do what? Oh, talk about. So, we are the Suspended Sentence is a podcast where we talk about primarily people who commit serious crimes that get a suspended sentence. Not necessarily that they don't get caught, but in one way or another, they get out of the crime that they committed. Season 1, we hit really hard on that. Season 2, we're doing more of like the most notorious serial killers of all time in the world. But we also do interviews with serial killers and with people who are on death row, people who are convicted of murder. So we've done a few really, really cool videos, and we've got a couple more that are coming out this year. So that's what we address, and we can be found at.
Oh, I always get this one ready. So we're on Instagram, TikTok, Patreon, Facebook, and then you can find us on Apple and Spotify.
And if you have an interest in how the judicial system works or crime rehabilitation, Traci has a book. And
I do.
so
Yeah.
give them a like, give them a share. They are more than 5 stars. Too bad we couldn't give them 10. But follow them. You will not regret it at all.
Thank you,
Thank
Stacey.
you.
I was scanning Spotify when a new podcast name popped up. It was new to me, and there were some interesting titles. I finally landed on one that piqued my interest, and it was on Pazuzu Algarad. I tuned in and became angered by the antics of this duo. I'm not going to say the name of the podcast because I don't feel that's warranted, because it was my own feeling about how they handled it. I don't think that they're a bad podcast. I just didn't like the way that they handled this particular subject. Because while discussing Pazuzu's case, they continuously made fun of him. They ridiculed his name, talked about how stupid he was, even discussing some of the mental health aspects with mocking voices, expressing views, even from the proclaimed practicing therapist, that are the very reason mental health issues are stigmatized. As soon as I heard this, I knew we had to do it, and I knew we had to have Traci and Samantha because all of our analytical minds is going to give this case, I think, the coverage that it needs. You know, is Pazuzu a good guy? Hell no. Was he severely mentally ill? Yes, hell yes, he was. The seeker of truths and student of the brain that I am, I'm compelled to retell his story from a different perspective, to examine this vicious, dark path into his madness. Settle in, party people, and please keep an open mind as you ask yourself, when was a time you didn't fit in
I
that you
can
can
think
think
of
of?
one. Well, it was a period of time for me.
Go for it.
So transitioning from the military as a female veteran into civilian world, I was ridiculed and bullied by other women who had never been in the military or been around the military because I was too vulgar, thought too much like a man, acted too much like a man. Took me a very long time to feel like I belonged anywhere.
Wow. I am so sorry to hear that. That is ridiculous.
I mean, probably the most recent one with me would be would be trying to. I mean, you mentioned my book. I ran a felony prison um, incarceration diversion program in the state of Wyoming, and the whole criminal justice judicial system, women specifically do not belong in. It's a
Mm,
bunch of middle-aged white men, politicians who
Mm,
want to rule everything, and you're a female with long blonde hair, sit down and look pretty, bring us a drink. And
that's
people
right.
don't take it seriously, and people don't, they just don't take you seriously, and then they
mm,
do whatever they can to stop you. And so I
Yep.
think that was, and they were very effective. I completed my program. I graduated everybody out of my program with 100% success rate, saving the state of Wyoming $1.5 million in incarceration costs. And I mean, I got shut down because of that, because women do not belong in that field.
Which is
I
absolute
completely.
bullshit because, I mean, look at how much you did, not only for the budget, for the penal
Mhm.
system in Wyoming, but not just for their budget. Look at all of these people that you helped to rehabilitate, to see that life without crime is doable. It's plausible and it can be, lucrative for them. They don't call it the good old boys club for nothing.
They sure
That's
don't.
so true.
So Pazuzu Algarad was born John Alexander Lawson on August 12th, 1978. He's the only child born to Cynthia Lawson in San Francisco, California. So the reason we say that way is he was abandoned by his biological father. Cynthia packed little John Alexander up and they relocated to Clemens, North Carolina. In grade school, John was mercilessly bullied and ostracized due to poor hygiene and even possibly a intestinal condition because he constantly smelled like feces. The other kids would call him Turd Boy.
Mm.
And other adults would ignore him, and even his mother would ignore him. So this little guy, with no fault of his own, because I mean, we've all had younger sisters, brothers, kids, nieces, nephews, and when they're young, they don't clean themselves. You got to help them.
Mhm.
And if you notice that this kid is walking by you as a teacher, as a counselor, as a parent, and he doesn't smell right, he needs help. He doesn't need to be
Mhm.
ignored. He doesn't need to be made fun of. He needs help. John went out for sports and even attempted to study harder to be a better student. And while attending Parkland High School, John's mother, Cynthia, remarries, bringing another person into this already strained family dynamic would prove to be extremely detrimental for John Alexander. Um, this guy, even though he was a good guy, he was not respected by John. And in with his mother being of a weak personality, she let them kind of just fight it out. He would do something that that the stepdad didn't like, and they would get into physical altercations about it. And mom would step back and just let him do it.
I'm
It's
sorry,
just like,
when was he born? Do you know?
oh, he
78.
was born in 78.
So this was probably happening in what, the 80s?
In the 80s. Yeah.
Late
Yeah.
80s?
Yeah.
Okay.
The 80s, early 90s.
Yeah. Cynthia will take the now 13-year-old John to one and only one therapeutic appointment. John admits to the therapist that he's abusing alcohol and experimenting with drugs
At 13.
at 13.
On the
Wow.
first visit.
First and only visit, correct? So
First and only visit. Yeah. Tracy, I know that you can speak on this too. Lavender, I know you can speak on this too. They don't ever come into therapy 100% willing, 100% ready to go. They may come in be excited because there's a moment, but then the hard stuff happens and that's the end of it. So,
Well, and the fact that in session one, he comes in and he relays all of that to his therapist, like that should, I mean, that's huge red flags, huge.
mhm.
And I say this in my book too, but if you were to line up a million first graders in a row and you went right down the row and said, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be when you grow up? Not a single one of them is going to say, I want to be an alcoholic. I want to be a drug addict. I want to be in jail. Nobody says that. Drinking and doing drugs at that age is absolutely a manifestation of something else, right?
Mm-hmm.
Trauma that's coming out that they can't cope with.
It manifests generally as anger and destruction. Like
Mhm.
drugs and alcohol has to be something introduced to them prior. They're acting out in different ways usually before that.
Right.
So,
Unless you have a stepdad that's beating the shit out of you every time you get out of line and you can't win, then it'll come out in something else, though, right? Possibly.
well, I mean, but how does he?
Yeah.
Where? How does he even know about drugs and alcohol?
He was not a good student at all. He repeated the ninth grade twice,
Wow.
and when he was facing it again for the third time, he just dropped out of school completely. Um, and the chaos in the single story home on 2700 block of Knob Drive just boils over. There's no respite for him. John tells his mother that it's his stepfather or it's him.
Oh,
That he
man.
was he gave that ultimatum. And now, okay, let's see. I was 14 in the ninth grade. So if he's kind of following along like I am, he's probably now what, 16
Mm-hmm.
for the set, for the freshman year. So he's 16 years old telling his mother, look, you get that man out of my house that you're married to, that pays for the house, that pays for the groceries, get him out of here or I'm
Mm-hmm.
walking. And she complies. She absolutely kicks him,
The son or the boyfriend?
the husband.
The husband.
oh,
Okay.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So her 16-year-old son, my son's 17. I love my son. But if my son ever came to me and was like, look, you're going to do this or I'm walking, I'll hand him a suitcase. Because I guarantee you, whatever he's thinking is going to be out there, he's not going to like it. And he'll come back. At 27, he finally receives inpatient treatment for his substance abuse. As well, during this 2 month period, he's treated for major anxiety disorder and agoraphobia. Now, his agoraphobia was a little different than the textbook cases where, for those of you that don't know, they don't leave their house. They're whatever's on the outside of their door in society scares them and makes them anxious enough they cannot function outside of their home. His was a little bit different. He could leave his his house for short periods of time, but he couldn't leave his neighborhood. So he could go out and say sit on the curb in front of his house, hang out with people, have people in, but going any farther than his neighborhood, he'd just shut down.
Huh.
It's interesting.
That is interesting.
Mm-hmm. Being brutally honest here, I don't know how many or who, after having this type of formative years, wouldn't have the same type of mental health crisis.
Well, it really goes back and forth. You have to do it both simultaneously, because generally drug and alcohol addiction is because of underlying mental illness, and you can't really address one without addressing the other, so you have to kind of tackle both at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, you do something pretty aggressive to address the substance abuse so that you can get them sober enough to address the mental illness or whatever it is, trauma or whatever it is that's getting him to that point.
And
That's why I always, whenever questions like that, I'm like, that's to her. She is way more educated. This is what she does. I'm not going to pretend like I have answers for that.
no, but you can have an opinion.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see what your opinion was, but you can't, like, you have to pretend like you didn't hear ours first.
Yeah.
Well, I do have the benefit of my mom does, and with the podcast and all this, we've done a lot of mental health discussions from that. So, I mean, I think I've kind of learned that from a lot of other cases too, and situations that probably would be my answer to, honestly, at this point. But if I
Mhm.
hadn't been in that, I don't know if I didn't have those resources and to be able to pick her brain as much as I have, I don't know what my answer would be.
Yeah, I think you'd probably answer the same way, though, don't you think? Because I mean, it's pretty commonsensical
Well,
that
so
you got to get somebody sober.
yeah, but if so, let's say for argument's sake,
Mhm.
I have no mental health. Let's say I have no background, I have no knowledge, anything, and you're presenting drugs, alcohol, and I know there's some trauma. I'd probably say like you need to get the drugs and alcohol situation figured out.
Mm-hmm.
That'd
Yeah.
probably be
But you almost have to do it simultaneously, because if you don't, if
yeah.
you aren't getting them sober and then immediately going into the trauma, there's risk at them relapsing almost immediately. So it's almost
Right.
like a simultaneous.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
because you can't address the trauma that is causing the substance abuse without beginning to eliminate the substance abuse. And
You got to find the why. Don't you see this, Lav, that a lot of people that we work with don't even understand why they do what they do. Like they've
Exactly.
come to, just use that band-aid and use that crutch so much that they don't even realize,
Right.
oh, this is coming from
Right. And you don't even really have to dig that deep, just even going into it like, this is from whatever, this is from
Right.
childhood trauma or something, that gives them just a little bit of insight into themselves, and that may just be enough to give them the courage to go and get clean.
Yeah.
that's a great point. Thank you guys so much for that. Because
Well, and we've talked about that a lot, especially with schizophrenia, like the cost of the medication.
It's so
I
expensive.
mean, a lot of
yes.
times, I mean, street drugs are cheaper than the medication.
And street
And
drugs have the same calming effect on them as
right.
their
And
That's
it
right.
quiets the voices and the hallucinations and everything. So
Sometimes the street drugs just make you feel better because you're still not dealing with that demon that's on your back.
drugs on the streets gives you a sense of community also, which people
Mm.
That's right.
very much want
Yeah,
too.
there's a community, and that's a bizarre point that you bring up. It's funny that there's a community when it comes to being druggies. Like you have your druggies, but you don't have
Yeah.
a group of schizophrenics hanging out.
And again, here we go with these are people who didn't always fit in. That's probably why they're on drugs because of their trauma. Well, then they get into a group where everybody, will just say, for example, everybody uses heroin, everybody uses methamphetamines. And now you've got best friends. All of you guys are best friends. You understand each other, you support each other. 2002, John Alexander decides to legally change his name to something people would fear. On Christmas Day in 1973, William Friedkin's movie The Exorcist premieres in theaters. People, it scared them even to say, like, hey, do you want to see The Exorcist, or have you seen The Exorcist? Oh no, that's too scary. That's too scary for me.
Have you watched The Exorcist?
No.
Oh, of course you have.
Audrey Hepburn, she said, it's not what you have, it's what they think you have.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So it wasn't so much that this movie really was all that terrifying, but you didn't know what was going to happen. You didn't know what was going on. And, at the time,
Well, it was the first of its kind.
thank you. That's where I was going.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And this is the same, I think, that John Alexander wanted to do. So the demon in that movie was called Pazuzu. And he wants to invoke the same kind of fear in others that he felt. He changed his name to Pazuzu Algarad. Um, and here, the podcasters ridicule Pazuzu for choosing a demon described by demonologists as a wind demon, and choosing Algarad, which means Lord of the Locusts. A demonologist guy, and said, oh, look, but he wanted to elicit the same type of fear into others that would be around him that the demon did in Friedkin's movie, in The Exorcist.
Mm-hmm.
Pazuzu, while high on methamphetamines, practiced a homemade tattoo method. You guys are going to laugh, especially Tracy. Um, the tattoo method called stick and poke, to tattoo random things on his face and the word Satan on his arm. If you look Pazuzu up, he has like a makeshift tribal on his cheek. He's got like lines on his nose, on his chin, and then it on the outside of his forearm. It looks like a child wrote Satan on his arm, and that was them, him and his buddies doing jailhouse tattoos. What do you guys think?
Well, and I was thinking the same thing. I mean, Lav and I are thinking the exact same way. You know, when we say he wanted to be feared, and
Hmm.
that's why he picked that name, I mean, that's our interpretation. Maybe to him, it was respect.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Well,
I mean, left there scared after seeing that movie, right? But there was
yeah.
an element of respect to the unknown, which is
Right.
why it scared us so much, right?
Hmm.
And he did, during the police, the interrogation, he did straight out say that he wanted to be feared. He
Oh, he
wanted
did.
to represent he wanted to represent what people were terrified of. And part of that was following the terrorist attacks of 9/11. Pazuzu began wearing Islamic attire. You may
Oh.
be asking yourself why, because once again, he wanted to be feared. He sought to represent the very image of fear.
But there
So,
is that fine line that between fear, like, and respect. Like when you're a leader, you can either have people do what you tell them to do because they fear
Mm-hmm.
you, or you can people do what you tell them to do because they respect you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. If you guys have seen Alice in Wonderland, the live action with Johnny Depp, the Red Queen is standing on the balcony with her first in command, and he says the guard says to her, your people fear you, and she said it's better to be feared than loved because
Mm.
love hurts. And when I think about Pazuzu, I think about that. Love
I
hurts
I think, yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with that one.
because you have to give of yourself. You have to be vulnerable. You have to
Mhm.
be okay with your flaws. And he didn't want to believe he had any.
Flaws really made him, really, right? His
Hmm.
flaws going all the way back to elementary school while people were making
Mhm.
fun of him for things he couldn't control. I mean, that well, and you know, being made fun of in elementary school is something that we've all gone through. I mean, kids are
Mhm.
assholes.
Right.
Everybody has been teased. Everybody has been made fun of, regardless of your socioeconomic background, regardless of how amazing you are. Kids are assholes, right?
Right.
But
Right.
where
Right.
kids go when they're made fun of and when they're teased at school is to their mother, right?
Hmm.
And
Mhm.
we wrap our kids in our arms and we explain to them that kids are assholes. And is that really true? And no, you're amazing and you're special and you're, we
Mhm.
counteract it,
Right.
right? For every negative thing a child hears, they have to hear 1,000 positive things, which they get from their mother or they get at
Hmm.
Mhm.
home, right?
Right.
And his mom, I mean, sorry, she was kind of a coward and didn't do that.
She does not intervene. She's a spectator to his downward spiral.
Well, she's been like that his entire life.
That's right.
Yeah. She didn't counteract any of it, which is, I
Right.
mean, what holds kids firmly on the path,
Mm-hmm.
right? Is
Mhm.
love from someone, from a guardian or a mother, typically.
So, as part of his air quotes demonic persona, Pazuzu was a self proclaimed Satanist. But here again, he had no clue what a true Satanist or Luciferian believed and practiced. We'll clear that up and many other misconceptions as we go along. Um, but here's a good place to start introducing the um, the other players in this drama. Two free spirited, equine. Did I say it right, Lav? They were equine enthusiasts.
Yes.
Say that 4 times fast, guys. They meet in Seattle, Washington. He is Josh Wetzler, and she is Stacy Carter. So they move back to Clemens, North Carolina, um, because Seattle they can't get their foot in of what they want to do, which is they want to buy a ranch. They want to raise horses for therapeutic um, reasons, and train them and then use them as therapy animals. Um, so when they moved back to Clemens, they were able to lease a huge ranch style property. Um, and in unfortunately, it was in a dire need of a renovation. Um, the construction proved, and Tracy, I will love to hear you're on this because you're a house flipper. You so
You're just in everything.
I
he
do
is.
It
everything.
makes
Oh
me
my gosh.
absolutely
Okay, totally
mad.
gotta put this in there. When you guys when you listen to the podcast, you'll realize, this woman is a jack of all trades. There is nothing she cannot do. She has laid
It's so
carpet, she has
annoying.
laid sheetrock,
Sheet rocket. I like it.
she rocket. That's what happens if I would do it. She's fabricated stuff. She grows chickens and cows and goats. And Samantha hates chickens, just to put that out there, you guys.
hate them.
I do it all, but I don't do any of it really well. Just for the record.
That is not true. But it's just so annoying because you never stop.
So the construction proved way too costly and time consuming for Joshua's small hoofing business. He made horseshoes and he would shoe, what do they call it? Ferrying? He was a ferryman?
Farriers. Farrier.
Yeah. But then he saw that putting the shoes onto the horses was cruel. He didn't like it. So instead of continuing with shoeing, he started doing a shaving of the hoof.
It's just
Is
like a
that
toenail.
Stacy becomes pregnant, and 10 months after welcoming son Jared, Joshua had fallen on hard times. Ignorantly, Joshua asks a friend to mail him psychedelic mushrooms via the damn post office.
So he's a bright fellow, huh?
I mean, in all honesty, in this time period that this is happening, how would they know that the mushrooms were in there?
So, needless to say, Josh is convicted of felony drug possession and is arrested. He has to do time. And Stacy moves out with baby Jared. Clemens being small after his release, Joshua lost his hoofing clients and found it nearly impossible to get work. So Tracy, can you speak on that a little bit? What are your thoughts on that kind of thing, like felons who did something that was non-violent and
Oh. Well, that's my forte, right? This is what I think. I think it's ridiculous. I mean, I understand that it really goes back to where you started this whole episode at, right? Is like the stigma associated with a certain person and a
Mhm.
certain thing. I mean, okay, like I know this is going to be a little controversial, right? Okay, but we
We're
all
always
think that we're so
controversial.
perfect and we all think that we're so great and we would never, right? Well, if you just had a baby, you have all these bills and all these expenses, you can't find work, you don't have any way to support anybody, you don't have anything, and
Mhm.
somebody says, here's some shrooms, go sell them for me and you'll make blah amount of money. Tell me
Mhm.
what idiot wouldn't,
Right.
right?
It,
I mean,
Right.
we are all one decision away from being a convicted felon.
Yeah.
Maybe
that's
We're
not for
right.
some, maybe not for something else, but we are all one situation and one choice away from being a convicted felon.
I mean, we're all
And
one
so,
choice away from OnlyFans. So
I mean, for
Exactly.
so, I mean, I think nonviolent felons, I mean, come on.
I agree with that.
I
The
think
two
it's
girls.
ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, after you do some time for mailing some mushrooms to somebody, he's not going to touch that shit again.
Um
Oh,
Unfortunately,
I mean, like through the post office, like sell them like
not
that.
through the post office. No. Didn't do it through the post office, but he he did not learn his
No, don't
lesson.
make me eat my words. Don't set me up like that. Don't make me.
Um Most people do though. Most people, they get in
They
trouble for something like that and they don't. They learn their lesson. They do their little bit of time. They learn their lesson. They go get a steady job and they're good. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, one of the biggest, and people may not know this or they may and not believe it, but nursing, doctors and nursing medical is one of the most prestigious careers you can have because it takes a lot of schooling. You deal with human lives. The largest career drug population are nurses and
Yep.
doctors. They are the biggest um, group of opioid users
I can see that.
Yep.
because your
yeah.
back hurts, your feet hurt, you're
And your
exhausted, you're
feet
doing
all
18
day. Yeah.
hours.
Mm-hmm.
Pop an upper, you can go another 18 hours.
Yep.
So exactly like Tracy just said, we are one decision away from being convicted felons.
Hmm.
Um, but on a lighter note, love was in the cards for Pazuzu as well, in the form of a naive teenager named Amber Birch.
Didn't
Amber
he have
would
two
bring
girls?
friends. What's
Didn't he
that?
end up with two girlfriends or something, right?
He had a lot of girlfriends. He had a
I don't
lot of
know.
girlfriends. They
I don't see it.
um they it was like they liked that. Well, you guys have said, I Tracy, I think you've said, I could be misspeaking, um but I know Lav has, girls like bad boys, so they like guys that are edgy and um
Yeah, not ones that haven't showered in like a year. I mean,
Yeah.
they have to shower regularly. I mean, I have a thing with teeth. If their teeth are messed up, oh god, no. I mean, I don't mind if they're crooked, but they have to brush.
Lav, did you take a look at the picture where his mouth's open
Yeah, I
and his
did.
teeth? Yeah. When I saw that, I thought of you, and I'm like, oh man.
I know I have this weird teeth thing.
And he did it to himself with a Dremel tool. But
Wouldn't that hurt?
he was loaded.
Oh,
He was on methamphetamine. So
Makes my
ugh.
teeth hurt
yeah.
even.
Yeah, I know. Mine's like itching now.
Right, mine too.
Oh yes, power of suggestion. Because I was looking at it and I was reading the little, bit where it said he used a Dremel, and I'm like, oh, ooh. And then the back part of my teeth back here started aching.
Oh,
And
yep.
I'm like, am I gritting? Is that what's going
Right.
on? Amber would bring friends over to Pazuzu's house to party because there were no rules, no boundaries, copious amounts of drugs and alcohol. They could do anything. They spray painted the walls, they peed, and they urinated, they defecated, um, anywhere. There was human feces, animal feces. There were um, there were animal carcasses in kennels all over the place. The trash in this house, when they finally were able to see the inside of it during the investigation that we're going to talk about very soon, it had to be torn down because it was uninhabitable.
Oh
Oh,
man.
gross.
And you may be asking yourselves where Cynthia Lawson was during all of this debauchery is going on in her house, and she just stayed in her room. She'd leave, go to work, ignoring the desecration of her home and her mentally collapsing son. Um, Seems to be a continuous cycle of Cynthia's neglect. She created him, and then she
Mhm.
created his psychosis, and then she created the situation that he ended up in.
She was probably afraid of him at this point.
At this point, yeah, she is. Now, at 28, 29 years old, yeah, because he's got superhuman strength because he's using all kinds of drugs. He's bringing all kinds of people in the house. They're doing whatever all over. There was sex
Mhm.
orgies. There was animal sacrifices. There was just a ton.
I mean, the house just looks
Uh,
like an abandoned house.
yeah. You see that, guys?
Oh,
Oh man.
It was disgusting. They had to wear hazmat suits to go in. I have no respect for that woman. None.
oh my gosh.
Well, and you're right too, because had things been different as he was growing up, okay? So we're talking about at this point he's essentially my age. To this
Hmm.
day, if you showed up at my house and my house was like that, oh man.
Oh man.
Oh man. My
Right.
house, I even if my house is a little bit dirty and I know mom's coming over, I will have like a full on panic attack because I'm like, I was raised to not act like that. Like she's gonna be
That's right.
disappointed in my house, which we wouldn't be, but you know what I
No,
mean?
yeah,
Like,
that's the same for me. People, if people just show up like without letting me know beforehand, you're not coming inside. We'll hang out on the front porch. But I'm
That's
like,
yeah,
right. Because if I got two cups and a plate in my sink, my house is dirty and you can't come in.
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
exactly.
Yeah.
The next person to enter this story is Tommy Welch. Now, Tommy, preparing for family night at his mother's home, walks the brief half mile to his house, being sure to tell his family he'd be right back. By late evening, October 3rd now, 2009, it became clear something was wrong. Tommy never returned to his family, and by all accounts, he never made it to his house either. And then just to the east, um, probably roughly about the same half mile or so, was where Pazuzu's neighborhood was. Around the same time that Stacy and Jared would see Joshua for the last time. Joshua had finally found employment and he was working for a traveling Renaissance company.
Mm.
So
That
he
actually
was like
sounds kind of
a
fun.
yeah, but his job wasn't. He was one of the behind the scenes, build it, tear it down, build it, tear it down guy. He wasn't like he didn't get a cool suit and get to be a knight or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, did he have a history of wandering off like that? Did he have a history of leaving her? Did he have and he was on probation, which means he had to check in, right? So
That's right.
that's really, I mean, if him
Bizarre.
wandering off and leaving like that for months on end was like a norm for them, something that he did on a regular basis, I could see it. But having no history of that, like, what the hell?
She finally figured out something was wrong when they didn't hear from him. They didn't hear from him on Gerald's birthday. They didn't hear from him on Christmas, and his mother didn't hear from him on her birthday because he was very close to his mom.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where she figures out, okay, well, something's wrong. Nobody's heard from him. Why did it take all of that?
Yeah,
Why?
it's a long time.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Hmm. I don't go. I mean, I will go check like social media to check on my friends sometimes because they have busy lives. We have busy lives.
Mhm.
But I'll always check it. Like I will watch your guys' page. I look for your episodes. Lavender, the same thing. I'll text you. You guys will text me stuff like that, and that's how we know that we're all still 6 feet above ground and breathing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all just close friends. We're not,
Right.
uh, we're not. Well, I mean, I consider you family, but I mean, it's not like we're not married. We're not. We don't have
We
children
don't have
together.
children together.
Exactly. Exactly. Um, we come back around to Pazuzu and Amber. Word around town was Pazuzu orchestrated blood rituals, animal sacrifices, satanic orgies, and had even filed his teeth to points, which is what we had talked. It he had three women mostly, but he would call them fiancés. So they were Amber was his main flame, and then the other females, uh, fiancés, as he called them, um, were just there to get high, get drunk, have a little sex, and then move along. But and the
Guess that
bad
makes us
part,
all high index scores.
yeah, and the bad part is some of Amber's friends, when she would take them over, they'd get to the front door, and the overpowering smell of
Why didn't the neighbors report
decay.
anything?
There wasn't anybody really close enough on either side, so they were
Mm.
kind of a little more spread out. And I think a lot of the neighbors were afraid of him. They didn't know what he would do.
Yeah.
He and Amber were notorious for telling outrageous stories of murdering prostitutes and eating their still beating hearts. Completely entertained by the shock value this and other extreme behaviors brought on. This reminds me of a puffer fish because, they make themselves big and look dangerous to ward off any predators. Um, but something else had begun to circle around town. It was rumored that the backyard of Pazuzu's Knob Drive home held two bodies. Word got back to Stacy Carter that Joshua was one of those bodies. And
Mm.
this wasn't just one person or two people. There was a lot of people. A lot of people. And this is where I kind of have to have a pretty bad opinion um, of the Forsyth Police Department because yeah. So Stacy goes to the Forsyth PD, who sent a unit out to Pazuzu's place. They were denied access to the home, and without having a warrant, they had to accept that. There was nothing they could do. Pazuzu's hygiene was at an all time low. He expressed to those who listened that bathing robbed him of his natural immunizational ability. In 2012, Pazuzu is tried and released on probation for shooting at and wounding Joseph Chandler, just a complete stranger. He's
Hmm.
outside in his front yard, and this guy walks by, and Pazuzu just pop with a BB gun for no reason.
What the heck?
It's and here again, he's expressing these grandiose ideas and these just completely unrealistic ideations about, well, if I take a bath, I won't be immune to anything anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, you're not brushing your teeth. You're not washing your ass. You're going to be sick. You're not in a clean environment. You're not in a clean body. You're not a clean mind.
Yeah.
Right.
The rumor mill reports, through various others, to the police department again that Pazuzu had dead bodies in his basement and his backyard. Again, police speak to Pazuzu and again leave empty handed.
So I get the whole
Hmm.
needing a warrant
You would
thing,
think the second.
but there is such a thing as
Mm-hmm.
probable cause, right? Like if you have probable cause and you can smell it going in the
Yes.
door, you don't need a warrant. If you have a reasonable suspicion that illegal activities are going on, they don't need a warrant. Am I wrong, or is that just in Wyoming?
No.
Mm-mm.
No, that's absolutely
Well,
correct.
there is no excuse for them not even attempting to get some sort of search warrant if this is the second time they're going to the house for the same reports.
Right.
That's right. That's
And
right.
also the
And
smell of it
you
would
can't tell
be
me.
like a welfare check at a
Right,
minimum.
which they would have. Right, right. Well, and they
Yes.
would have smelled
Yeah.
it the first time around, so there's no excuse the second time they go back. I don't think at all.
And so okay, so now um they've come, and not only is there this horrific smell of decay and just feces and garbage, but he has um all over his front door he has graffitied like evil will prevail, and the cops will never be able to come into my home, kind of, sentiments like, we're free, and because we're free, you never get to come in here.
Mhm.
This reminds me of the Charles Manson stuff.
Hmm.
I wonder if, Lav, help me out here. I wonder if him not showering and making it smell so bad in there was him trying to cover up the decaying bodies.
That's what I was thinking too. Like all the feces and piss and stuff, trying to mask the smell of decay.
Right.
I was thinking that earlier.
So that he had a justification for when they came, being like, well, what are you saying? No, shower.
This is how I live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who are you to tell me how to live? Yeah.
Right.
And unfortunately, it's not illegal to be a slob. So,
Right.
so almost 5 years has passed, and a credible person comes forward telling police she told Stacy Carter Joshua's car had been abandoned in a local parking lot and Joshua was dead. So Forsyth PD, armed this time with warrants and cadaver locating equipment, rained down on the Clemens, North Carolina property. On October 5th, 2014, the badly decomposed bodies, later identified as Joshua Wetzler and Tommy Welch, are recovered from the backyard. Pazuzu, Amber, and another friend, Crystal Matlock, are arrested for Joshua and Tommy's murders. Crystal will go on to admit to the police they were riding around in a car. They saw Tommy walking towards his house. They were across. They called to him, told him they needed help. He walked over, being the good Samaritan he was, and they grabbed him and they pulled him into the car. They took him to Pazuzu's property, made him kneel in the backyard, and Amber put a rifle to his forehead and shot him point blank. And Cynthia Lawson saw it.
I wonder what Amber's like mental diagnosis is.
She can't she can't be of sound mind. I mean,
Right, exactly. That's what I'm thinking. She had to have some sort of
there's
something.
yeah, other than the drug use.
Yeah.
Well, even with the drug use, it doesn't make you a killer.
And he even went on and started calling her his bride. The other women were just his fiancées, and then he started calling her his bride.
Yeah, it's almost like it's like a control submission type thing almost. I don't know, is what it feels like to me. I don't know what your
Right.
guys' opinions on that are, but
I love you more than.
Oh no, she was
Actually,
absolutely submissive.
there's actually a diagnosis: hybistrophilia.
Hybristophilia.
we did an episode on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so that's what I
Yes.
was trying to I couldn't remember what it's called. Yeah. But it
Mhm.
feels almost like that
But
to me.
typically with hybristophilia, typically they don't actually engage in the crimes. It's more of this ideology that they won't do it to me.
That
It's like a fascination with people
right.
who commit crimes. It's not
And they're just
actually
attracted to people that do it, is my
right.
understanding. They're attracted to the person that does the crime, and that's what turns them on.
Right, but not actually
But
engaging in the crimes with them. I'm pretty sure it's just, if I remember right.
It's just the attraction
Right.
to. It's not engaging in the crimes. It's the attraction to a person that does the crimes.
Mhm.
so then
However, then there's that
it's an
element.
escalation.
Yeah, there's that element of the environment, right? And opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
and then you throw in, depending on the kind of drugs that she's using. Now listen, I know some really really phenomenal human beings who, I mean, I've talked about one several times on our episode, who is currently being tried in Colorado for kidnapping, rape, and murder. And this kid has been in my home. Like, I love this kid. I would never think that he was capable of doing this. Never in a million years. But he got
Mhm.
bad drugs and he used a lot of them. And then all of a sudden, he's wrapped up in this kind of scenario. So perhaps, I mean, I'm not saying it's
That
very uncommon, but I mean,
maybe
I'm not
that
saying.
mixed with the want and the need for his affection and his love.
Right.
I
I don't
mean,
know.
is his acceptance,
Right.
because here you have all these other people that are coming in, and women, and they're looking at him like he's, this god, and he's wonderful, and they want his attention. And then here you have Amber, that's like, you know what, I'm going to go a step further. I'm not just going to do the drugs with you. I'm not just going to drink with you. I'm not just going to, put my hair in dreads with you. I'm going to kill for you.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm going to do it in
And
front of you. Look. Yeah.
that's right. I'm going to solidify my spot in your life,
My
and nobody will take it from me.
my loyalty to you.
So many questions remain unanswered due to Pazuzu committing suicide. Just as he lived, John Alexander Pazuzu Algarad Lawson bit a chunk out of his wrist, bleeding to death in a dramatic fashion.
That was
There's the
the ultimate sign of taking control.
And that's why I wanted you guys on this, because that right there is the ultimate suspended sentence. He won't answer earthly for his crimes, and whatever your belief system for the afterlife is, you guys that are listening, he may answer for them in a different plane or a different, reality, but he will never stand trial
Yeah.
here.
What did Amber get? And what was the other girl's name?
Oh, Matlock. So she was tried and convicted of first degree murder. Um, Crystal was charged, convicted, and released of accessory, because she helped dig the hole. She didn't
Well,
assist in
she
the killing.
watched too, so
Yeah,
it didn't
yeah.
report it. That makes sense.
In a written letter to his mother, Pazuzu ridiculed the people he killed for being stupid. Um, During interviews, Cynthia Lawson expressed that she'd seen Josh on the couch as Pazuzu held a gun to his head, and was returning from work when she witnessed Amber holding a gun to Tommy's forehead as he begged on his knees for his life.
Jesus.
Did she get anything?
No.
She should have gotten an accessory as well. She knew all this was going on.
Now, again, you might be questioning what Cynthia's reaction was. She stayed in her room and stayed to herself. As she's going through all of these things that he did, she looks straight at the camera and says, I feel like I failed him.
Oh, you think? Oh
You,
my God.
you fucking think.
Jesus. And here I go. I'm gonna do it suspense sentence style, right? Like, and
Do it.
Lavender is gonna completely agree with me when I say this. I'm sure. Everybody failed this kid. Everybody. From the very fucking
Mm-hmm.
beginning, everybody failed him. Teachers, duty to report what?
Mm-hmm.
Therapist, do no harm, duty to report what? I mean, everybody failed this kid. All of this could have been prevented if anybody would have taken any fucking social responsibility whatsoever. Yeah, he wouldn't leave his neighborhood, but come on, neighbors, you know that he lives there. Even if he isn't coming outside, nobody had the goddamn foresight to call anybody ever. And even the people who he was interacting with, they weren't saying anything. They weren't, I mean, the loved ones of them, parents, grandparents, cousins, brothers, sisters, neighbors, employees, nobody said anything. Like, we're all
No,
just gonna wear beige and keep our fucking mouths shut. That's how people die.
that's right. That's right. We're going to put blinders on,
Yep.
and we're going to see the shit that this guy did and the people that did it with him. And we're going to turn a blind eye
Right.
because we don't want to get involved.
Right. Right. And even as therapists, okay, and 50% of us work in the field in this conversation, right? But even us in our in our professional, in our rooms, right, in our offices, when somebody comes in and they meet with us, no, we can't go and pursue them if they don't show up again. However, if somebody walked into my office, and I'm sure that if somebody walked into Lavender's office and they had horrible hygiene, they said the things that he said, conveyed the things that he said, we would have a duty and an obligation to get other people involved.
Well,
Mhm.
especially since he was a child when this happened.
Absolutely.
He was in his teens. So he was under the age of 18, so it should have been reported.
Absolutely. 100%. To a healthcare professional, to the school nurse, to somebody.
Yeah.
And nothing was done.
Yeah.
Nothing was done to protect this kid when he was a kid, and he should have been protected. I'm not justifying what he did by any stretch of the imagination.
We say this a million times too. We can feel heartbroken for the child.
Yes,
We can feel
absolutely.
heartbroken for the
Thank you.
child without
But not the adult.
with not feeling heartbroken for the adult.
However, if anybody would have
Yes.
intervened when he was a child, I would bet $1 million that this would not have happened.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. They could have intervened. Okay, even outside of elementary school, he repeats ninth grade twice.
Right.
Okay, so the first time, okay, second time, and you're starting to see him failing again. Why are you not taking action?
Exactly.
Why are you not calling in a 405 plan? Why are you not calling in the school psychologist? Why are you not bringing his mother in and saying, look, your kid smells like shit 24/7. What are you doing?
Right.
Why are you not taking care of him?
Right.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And had anybody intervened, I would bet that this would not be the outcome.
It's amazing to me, honestly, when because I mean, you were a foster parent when I was growing up, and one of our foster kids that lived with us, he was because of like tardy, like he had missed too much school, he wasn't attending enough school or something, is why he was originally
Yeah.
right.
Mhm.
It was a
Oh,
Truancy,
he was a
probably.
truant. Yeah.
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
That in the grand scheme of things is pretty minor, right? When we're talking about big issues like this. But then there's situations like this where
Right.
the state isn't involved in all.
Right.
So you're taking kids like him
Right.
for truancy issues, and he's staying in these situations forever and just constantly just stays in it forever.
Right. And we're not
Like,
talking
I don't
about the
understand that.
1960s.
We're
I mean,
talking
this was the
about
90s,
yeah.
for God's sakes. We knew better.
It's
you know?
amazing
The-
to me.
90s and 2000s. I mean, even as an adult,
Right.
there's an absolute responsibility of society. Not only did he slip through the cracks as a kid, he got buried in them by society. Nobody wanted to deal with him.
Yep.
He was the
Right. Well, and
weird guy.
this all goes back to the stigma of mental illness. Everybody turns the blind eye. Nobody wants to talk about it. They don't want anything to do with it. And so a lot of these cases like that, that's kind of what's happening. Everybody's like, "Oh, he's just crazy. I don't want to deal with that."
Right.
Yeah. Heartbreakingly, Stacy Carter tells reporters, quote, I knew Josh was not alive because there's no way this man did not contact his mother or his son for 5 years. So I'd like to shed some informational light on a few of the misconceptions about Pazuzu Algarad. First one being Satanism. Satanism is very different in reality from Pazuzu's self proclamations. Satanism is a spiritual ideology shaped by the Church of Satan and satanic, both by in Bible, excuse me, both by Anton LaVey. Anton LaVey's teachings are to promote self awareness, self respect, and reliance on oneself through an atheistic, point of view. Satanists do not actually worship nor believe in Satan as a true deity. True Satanists, as well as pagans, natural witchcraft practitioners, and certain elements of the occult love and respect children and animals. There is no live sacrifices, there are no blood rituals. Satanists are cloaked in infamy by the narrow minded thinking of many religious groups.
Mhm.
So, true Satanists, um, they don't want to destroy the world. They don't want um, death and destruction. They're megalomaniacs. They are, self indulging, but they're not dangerous, not true Satanists.
Mhm.
Um, Luciferians. This belief system is affixed to Lucifer not as an underworld demon, but as the protector associated with the planet Venus, named for one of the many goddesses of love. Just like Satanism, there are no dark sacrifices, no blood rituals, or evil beings. Luciferians believe this deity is a guardian, a liberator, and a bringer of light. So, for anybody that may know the biblical stories about when Lucifer, was cast out of heaven and he was a fallen angel. Well, he was the angel of light. He was he brought knowledge to the humans, and unfortunately, knowledge is power, and that's why he kind of got a bad rap if you think about it.
Mhm.
Clarification to psychiatric diagnosis. A consulted forensic psychiatrist diagnosed Pazuzu as a schizotypical personality disorder. What happened to mandated reporting?
Yeah.
We have been mandated reporters since well, I remember when I was in grade school and they first started talking about what a mandated reporter was, what they had to do,
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
and then went on to become one. What? Why were these people not prosecuted? Why were these people not taken out of their positions of authority?
Absolutely. Starting with the school teachers.
Right, right.
Because like
I agree.
a kid is coming to school in that condition, you're at least going to make a report to a healthcare professional.
This disorder is in a classic group of conditions once informally called eccentric personality disorder. These are people who are seen as peculiar or odd to others. They may demonstrate unusual thinking patterns or behaviors, so they don't fit the sociological mold. Fuck, this is me and 90% of my friends. I don't
I
fit I don't fit a sociological mold. I have a mohawk. I'm
I mean,
tatted up.
in
I'm
all
a
actuality,
lesbian.
we could all fit into some sort of mental diagnosis. I think they diagnosed him with this because one of the symptoms is extreme social anxiety and then different forms of paranoia.
Mhm.
So,
Think that
Yep.
other than that, like,
was actually meant.
I think it was drug induced
I do
probably.
too. That's why I would lean more
But
towards
you can't diagnose. I was going to say you can't accurately diagnose somebody while they're high.
absolutely not. I can't believe that he doesn't have an
Um,
antisocial
That's what I was going to yeah, that's what I would have leaned towards.
Due to rigid thinking, subjects may present deficiencies in healthy coping skills and limited ability to form healthy, lasting relationships. That's basically what we just said.
Mhm.
He's
Right.
not able he's not able to complete most actions without some assistance from dangerous substances. Um, some of the symptoms are they may dress, speak, or act in an odd or unusual way, display paranoia or extensive suspicious behaviors, have few to no friends, be inadequate or uncomfortable in social situations, may demonstrate an inability to perform in intimate situations. He didn't have this one because he fucked every chick that walked through his house. So,
Antisocial personality disorder is, in order to be diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder, an individual must show continuing pattern of disregard for and violation of the rights of others, occurring since the age of 15 or younger, with three or more of the following: failure failure to conform to laws, deceitfulness, impulsivity, irritability and aggression, reckless disregard for the safety of self or others, consistent irresponsibility, and lack of remorse.
All of them.
Right.
exactly. Just, you know what? That was a tailor made jacket just for him. That's the
Right.
way that his life was.
You only have to have
But
three.
You
the
only have to
bad,
have three, and he had every single one. And also,
yes.
all of the ones
Right.
that you read for the schizoid, or the what was the one that you read, Stace?
Oh, the
The
schizotypical.
schizotypical. Those are
Mm-hmm.
also everything that would also be a manifestation of drug use. Unable to
Yes.
have healthy relationships,
Brand,
Right,
able to, I
exactly.
mean,
The
all of
odd communication, odd beliefs,
them.
yeah,
yeah.
paranoia, distorted perceptions, all
Grandiose,
that is growth.
grandiose
Yeah.
ideas.
Right, which is exactly why, like
He
Lavender just
completely,
said, you cannot diagnose somebody if they have drugs in their system. You can't.
no.
Mm-hmm.
Think about this kid at 13
Yeah.
is going out and getting methamphetamines.
Mm-hmm.
And I know marijuana is legal. I know people say, oh, it's not that bad. I don't give a shit what you say. It's a fucking, it is a gateway drug. If you're comfortable doing one and then you add alcohol on it and you're comfortable being stoned and drunk 90% of the time, you're just gonna escalate on. And I've seen that in my life. Is it everybody? No, of course not. Not everybody does everything. But I've watched it in my life where it went simply from here, you're 16, try a beer, see if you like beer, to now a 19-year-old that's in rehab because they couldn't, let that one beer go.
Yeah.
They liked the way they felt and they kept doing it.
Mm-hmm.
This was absolutely avoidable.
Oh,
100%.
Mm-hmm. I
These
agree with
these
that.
these two young men, excuse me, could have gone on to improve their lives, to live them, and they didn't get to. Um, a young man never got to really know his father.
yeah.
A family never truly got to know. They had their suspicions, um, and all the information that they gave to the reporters about um, Tommy being abducted was all circumstantial. And there, even though Crystal Matlock had said this happened, there was no physical evidence. They never was able to find any physical evidence of him being in a car or anything. But the greatest question that still is there that nobody can answer, not even Amber, is how these two men came to know Pazuzu. Joshua was there willingly. He wasn't forced there. Tommy, I believe, was forced there. But because that wasn't the first time that Joshua had been to Pazuzu's home, he'd been there a couple times.
Right.
I think he was a supplier. I think he
Yeah.
sold them drugs. And they just decided that maybe that time they didn't want to pay. Or
Right.
they wanted a new game.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to play a new game.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Who knows?
So,
Opportunity killings.
mhm,
God. Social responsibility.
that's right.
Right?
That's right. And it's funny, I know people will they make fun of sometimes when the saying that it takes a village to raise a
No,
child,
it does.
and they like to clown on that, but it
For
does.
sure.
Does.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
It starts in the home, and then it goes to the school. It goes to extracurricular activities. If you're a member of a church or a religious congregation, aunts, uncles, grandparents, parents of friends, we got to come
Mhm.
together.
Absolutely.
We've got to protect our kids. We've got to give them more, because if we don't, it is not going to be global warming that takes our earth out. It's going to be the absolute lack of humanity and the absolute lack of personal responsibility.
Absolutely.
Right.
And it's hard, it's scary to take action and step into a situation you may not be intimately involved in, but in the end, if you steer that 13-year-old away from alcohol, away from drugs, you give him coping skills, he gets therapy. Maybe instead of him filing his teeth down with a Dremel tool, he goes on to speak to other kids about the
Right.
dangers of using drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
They didn't want to deal with him. He was the weirdo, he was the druggie, he was the stinky kid.
Right.
And
Just he
and
was just
any
ignored in adult
mhm,
life like he was as a child.
yep. He was a nuisance. They didn't want to deal with him.
He was what he was told that he was when he was 5 to 13.
Mhm.
Yep. And it's hard. I mean, Tracy is a parent, Sam is an awesome, big sister. Lav is a parent. I'm a parent. It's hard as shit. It is hard as shit to tell your kid no. I hate telling my kids no. I hate telling my niece and nephew no. I hate telling my great nephew no. But if we do not give them that structure, this is what happens. They go wild, they don't know what to do with themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and they take the hardest, most destructive path possible.
Correct.
It's okay to say no. Well, we may act like we don't have a problem saying no, but deep down you're like, is this one time I'd be okay to say yes?
You know, this saying, it's going to hurt me more than it hurts you. That really is true as a
Mm-hmm.
parent. Like when you have to make those tough choices,
Yeah,
but you have to. You have to. I remember the first time
yeah.
you got your ass whooped. I beat your ass and then I went in the other room and I cried. Like it hurt me way more than
Mm-hmm.
your little spanking of your bare butt.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm a perfect
We
angel.
with us.
It was a great podcast. It was a great episode. You did an amazing job. I mean, it was good. And thank you so much for letting us be here and do this with you.
Thank you.
We'll
Thank you.
we'll have to do it again.
So grateful to be your guys' friends and to know you, and thank you for having us on.
I agree. I agree. The world is a phenomenally interesting place, and it just becomes more interesting when you get to hang out with intelligent, beautiful women like you, like all three of you.
Like
So
all four.
I would offer you my heart, but it's black and gone. So I can't offer you what I don't have. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
And
Thank you for joining
one
us.
one more time out there, you guys go check out Traci and Samantha, the Suspended Sentence podcast, Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, Apple. If you can find a podcast, they're on it. And as always, my super villain, Lavender, mwah, my very good
Mwah.
friends, mwah, and we'll catch you on the flip side.
Bye.
Hey guys, it's Stacy, one half of the Gorgeous Ghouls, and I want to play for you a trailer from one of Lav and I's very good friends, Natasha, over at Cryptids, Creeps, and Conspiracies. So I hope you enjoy and go check her out.
Hi, I'm Natasha with Cryptids, Creeps, and Conspiracy. Embark with me on a journey to uncover the details involving cryptids, haunted houses, and unsolved mysteries. Get ready to awaken your curiosity and explore the unknown. ask questions, and together, let's unravel the secrets behind the legends.